I'm going to talk about now where we're going this morning. I've been talking about Jack and the work he's been doing for the last, really the last year with his team. So, we consistently, have to prove the economic benefits of travel. But at the same time, we still have to battle for appropriate funding. And even in some cases, we know some of you are battling for even existence in your communities. It seems that residents and politicians understand, in many cases, the economic impact of what we do, but they still sometimes continue to connect the dots and understand the value that we deliver for their community. So I will tell you, the work has begun with all of you, particularly in the area of advocacy through the support of the foundation. But we must connect, engage, and inspire local politicians and residents alike to view our work in the term of a community shared value, a public good. And I'm sure in each of your cases you can relate to that. But the message we deliver as a group, collectively, 600 destinations in 15 countries, has got to be consistent, it's got to be clear, and it's got to be repetitive. And communities that do not continue to invest in what we do and make that investment in this destination marketing, they're going to be left behind. And I know we have countless examples of that, where in some cases, communities that have done this and states that have done this are still trying to come back to their previous levels. So the architect behind this, to lay out the whole, how to become this community shared value in the process of making the public argument for funding of destination promotion, please join me now with one of my closest colleagues and friends and somebody I get a chance to partner with every day, Jack Johnson. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I do want to say that the last 8+ years that I've worked with Don Welsh have certainly been the most exhausting of my career. I've become all gray during this period, but also the most intellectually stimulating and creative parts of my career. So for that, I thank you, Don. Okay, so let me start by stating the obvious. Despite our collective efforts, each year, the number of destination organizations being put under the microscope by politicians, by government officials, and by the media is growing. Now, review of a government budget by those elected officials and those staff that work with them is actually an annual event. Reviewing and enacting an annual budget is legally part of their job and should be expected, and we should prepare for it. However, for various reasons, perhaps because how small our budget is in terms of the whole government budget, or perhaps because you've successfully built good relationships with your elected officials, most of us have not been subject to an extremely rigorous review in the past. So let me assure you, that is changing. More and more destination organizations will see greater review going forward. According to several government funding experts, the projections for most government show that the expected government revenues are growing at a pace below projected government expenditures. Complicating this is an increasing level of turnover among elected officials and a loss of institutional knowledge. This is driving elected officials who are, by nature, risk-averse to raising taxes, to cut expenditures and realign current tax revenues. Unfortunately, we have done a great job of positioning visitor-related taxes and fees, such as hotel taxes, as not being paid for by residents. And that has made these revenues attractive to realign for other purposes. Or worse, to increase these taxes and fees without providing any portion of that to invest in travel promotion or meeting facility improvements. Now that itself is worrisome. But what has me more worried is that we are seeing activities that go beyond just a review. Destination organizations are beginning to see their government funding, and too often their own existence, under attack. As we have seen in Florida and other places, defeating these attacks in any given year does not in any way guarantee that they will not return the next year for another crack at it. And there is a growing trend by those who seek to divert destination organization funding to start by undermining the credibility of the destination organization. Okay, in this effort, these are heavier than I thought they were. In this effort, their new favorite tactic is a call for a program audit. And way too often, we are unprepared and become our own worst enemy. And trust me, the annual audit that you go through every year concerning your revenues and your expenditures will never prepare you for a full-scale program audit by an auditor hired by the government. These are two different beasts driven by two different masters. Now, my staff and I currently spend a lot of time reviewing newspapers and editorials. We look at websites, press releases, social media postings, newsletters, podcasts. But this past year, we have spent an inordinate amount of time scrutinizing destination organization program audit reports. Moving beyond that, we have poured through government RFPs for destination marketing services and the memos and city plans and minutes of government meetings that are related to those RFPs. We have been watching hours and hours of mind-numbing video of local government public hearings. And all of this has driven me, at least, to one simple question. Why do those who are attacking us think that they can get away with it? And the answer is really simple. Because they can. All right. From my point of view, there are three reasons for this. So let me start with some of the stuff that we have found in all those documents and reports that we have looked at. Okay. Quotes. Does not ensure that public funds are being used effectively and efficiently. Deficient procurement and contracting practices that undermine accountability and does not ensure best value. Disregarded its own procurement procedures. Does not even meet the minimal level of prudence required when dispersing public funds. Does not consistently follow established policies and procedures and laws. Missing receipts, no signatures, commingled funds. They use vague metrics that make it hard to tell how well or where they spend millions of dollars. They talk about industry standards and we don't understand them. They do not give any meaningful information pertaining to their ROI. Council delays marketing vote for transparency concerns. City spends millions of dollars on its tourism agency, but we have no idea if that's money well spent. How did a festival lose $2.3 million? Pleaded guilty to 7 counts of felony theft. And the one that I hate or fear most of all, beginning to question the Convention and Visitor Bureau model. With PR like this, is it any wonder that a lot of people out there see us as open for attack? Okay, reason number 2. Destination organizations are too often finding their relevance in a community that is weak and non-existent. There seems to be a genuine disconnect between the destination organization and the community it claims to serve. Now, members of our industry often joke that not even their families know what it is they do, much less neighbors and friends. We've all done that, right? But unfortunately, in way too many cases, it's not a joke. It's actually true. Worse, rarely is the community, either as a whole or through its leaders, fully engaged or even partially engaged. They most likely have not been involved in any brand development or some cases even seen the promotional campaigns that have been launched on their behalf. And the mechanisms for collecting public input are regularly absent. The community does not know the priorities or even understand the reasons behind them. They have little understanding what is involved in building awareness, what's involved in business acquisition, what is involved in driving visitation. Barely more understand why hotel developments and sports facilities or convention centers are so important, which means that there is no community ownership, no community-based narrative, and any grandstanding politician will see fertile ground to control the narrative. All right, reason 3. As if things weren't complicated enough, the civic and political ground on which we stand is shifting, has been shifting. Over the last several decades, there have been societal changes on a massive scale. We have seen political scandals, we've seen the Great Recession, terrorist attacks, the initial effects of initial effects of climate change, civil rights, human rights, urbanization, globalization, new patterns of immigration, and new means of communication. We've even seen the Chicago Cubs win the World Series. Checking to see if you're paying attention. All right, but seriously, traditional societal roles and expectations, for right or for wrong, have been upended. Technological advances are increasing the pace of change, and while they are creating so many new opportunities, they are moving at a pace faster than most economies can adjust. Workers are being displaced, and traditional modes of economic mobility are disappearing. And as it is with all change, the divisions between winners and losers are being aggravated. A more interconnected world actually has increased rather than reduced differences over ideas and identities. And our political leaders, they are finding that appeals to identity are useful for mobilizing their supporters and consolidating their political control. There has been a growing distrust in traditional institutions, and it is magnified by a deep-seated sense of fear. And a lack of trust, magnified by this deep-seated fear, results in people acting based on emotion and gathering themselves in teams based on identity. Because of this, the responses that we have used in the past that have worked too often no longer resonate. We talk to public, to elected officials, to the media about industry performance, measurements, and return on investment that too often are not even understood or believed. The logic of our arguments too often doesn't really seem to matter. And most of us have no other options in our playbook. We have few allies beyond, or constituencies beyond the core industry partners that we have. No means to break through today's political chatter, and nothing to keep a supported elected official from flipping on us. And we have no answer to the response, "We do not believe you." The status quo is no longer an option. We need to take a step back. We need to figure out what is the most basic thing that we need to be paying attention to every day. Something that explains why we do what it is we do. Something that is of value to the community. Something that we once knew and somehow forgot. We need to find our cornerstone. Now, when I worked in government on the appropriations, it was understood at the beginning of every annual budget cycle that no matter what the state of the economy, no matter the amount of tax revenues that were available or lack of thereof, that every official would be able to say at the end of that legislative session that they had voted to increase funding for education. The only question was how much. No official was going to have to need to say at the end of the legislative session that they had cut health care or they had voted to lay off first responders. No official would need to stand for a reduction in the delivery of water, electricity, gas, or sewer services. And every elected official would be able to say that they did something to drive economic development opportunities. And if it involves supporting small businesses, you got extra points. These are community needs, and they are all based on a community's shared value. We believe that an educated individual is a better citizen, a better worker, a better person. And that is why people like me, who have no children of my own, do not mind that my taxes go to pay to educate other people's kids. We believe that people should have access to basic health care. Now, we may argue about what basic means. We may argue about how to pay for it. But we believe in access to health care, which is why if you are in need, an ambulance will arrive and you will not be turned away from an emergency room. We believe that everyone should be safe from crime or fire or disaster. We may argue about how those services are being delivered, but not about the need. We believe that in a civilized world, we should have access to clean water and power and sewer services. For without these items, we can't operate this modern world we're in. And disease and famine would spread, and it would affect all of us. And we believe that there is a role for government in the economy. We may disagree on the extent of that role, but even libertarians believe that there is a basic role to be played, because growing a vibrant and diverse economy benefits us all. These are community needs, each one a shared value. So what about us? I will and have argued until I am blue in the face that we too fill a community need, that we provide necessary services, or at least we should be providing them. But I also must acknowledge that we are not a shared community value. And that is why people and officials feel free to attack us. It's why they believe they can get away with it. Okay, so how do we fix that? We do it by answering some really simple questions and then going where those questions lead us. Okay, first off, what is the community need? I would argue that in today's globalized, networked world, every community must compete with every other community for their share of visibility, their share of attention, their share of respect. Every community must compete for their share of tourists, but also customers and talent. Every community must compete for their share of the world's businesses and their share of the available capital and investments. And those communities who choose not to compete or fail to compete will lose ground. They'll all be left behind. Question 2. So what are the solutions? Obviously, a community needs infrastructure, it needs capacity, it needs residents. But that alone is not enough. For a community to compete, simply put, people need to be made aware of it. They need to hear about it. They need to be able to find it when they're searching. People need to be shown that it's a destination. They must have a clear and positive, defined image in their brain, an impression of the brand that is strong. And people need to want to visit that place, that destination, to experience that community and its people for themselves. And then here's the key, share that experience with others. Think about the Starbucks story from the first day. Okay, question 3. Why are we the solution? What is the expertise that we bring to the equation? Strategies to achieve awareness and positive impressions, brand development, management, communication, promotion, marketing, sales, visitor engagement. Sound familiar? You are the experts. You have the tools. You have the knowledge. You have the relationships to provide the solution. And most of all, you have one thing that an outside contractor can't do. You have the love of your community to see it through. Okay. That means, though, you have a bigger mission. It is not your mission to put heads in beds or seats in hotel seats. Those are really good measurements. They are important measurements. And there are constituencies that need to be healthy for you to achieve what you need to do. But it is not your mission. Every visitor is important. Every impression is important. And everything that allows your community to compete is important. Okay, question 4. Final question. Who are you helping? Who is our customer? Seth Godin in the book, This is Marketing, says that the answer to just about every question about work really is this question. Who are you helping? It should be the starting point of your strategic plan. It should be the starting point of any good marketing plan. Who are you helping? The answer, destination promotion is for the benefit and well-being of every person in a community. It's an essential investment to develop opportunities and build quality of life to benefit the people of a destination. What are you always pointing to? How many jobs you created? How much local spending you generated? How much tax revenue you generated? How much economic activity you generated? Who is helped by this? Who is your customer? It's your residents. Let me repeat that. Your residents are your customers. It's not meeting planners, event planners, concert planners, association executive tour operators, travel writers, bloggers, influencers, or anyone that we have traditionally called our customers. They are not your customers. They are your suppliers. Now, it's a supplier's market, so you still have to be nice to them. Unfortunate. But they supply the raw material a community needs to compete, the needed ingredient to create a vibrant community, to build a community, to invest in a community. They bring people. And those people are tourists, consumers, talent. And those folks bring business, investment, and capital. And why do we do this? To develop a dynamic economic opportunity in our community. And why do we do this? To help the people in our destinations, our families, our friends, our neighbors, our community. This is why we work so very, very hard. This is why what you do is so very, very important. And everyone in your community should know about it. All right. When you put the answers to those questions together, you actually get something amazing. You get our cornerstone. The words on the next 3 slides represent that cornerstone. This should be the starting point as you draft your About Us statements or your mission statements. Because when your organization represents the cornerstone, your organization is a community organization. And that means that you are a community asset. But it's even more. This is our ideology. These are our ideas and our ideals. They form the basis of a community shared value. Further than that, these 3 slides are the argument for public support of destination promotion. And it is a direction I firmly believe that we as an industry must move. We must become that shared value in each one of our communities. Also means we have a lot of work to do. And I understand that making this pivot is ambitious. But we have a plan. The Destinations International Foundation is embarking on one of its largest endeavors to provide you with the tools you're going to need to become a community shared value. The Workbook Project, as we call it, will provide you with the information, case studies, tools, and templates to navigate these waters. This is not a playbook. This is not a toolkit. This is not a textbook. It's a comprehensive collection of everything you will need to make this pivot. And it's being designed with a grassroots approach by destination organizations for destination organizations. Now, work has already begun on the project. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, we are going to switch it into high gear when we hold a shirt sleeve devoted to building out the laundry list of the contents of this workbook. But we're moving forward on one part of this pivot. We need to learn how to interact with our residents and our elected officials in a language that they understand, a language based on shared values and emotion, a language that cuts across identity-based groups, a new lexicon. As part of this workbook effort, later this morning at 11, we're releasing an additional 10 words to bring our core vocabulary up to 20 words and provide examples from members, destination organizations, who have used them and have used them to speak in the language that was designed by politicians to talk to residents. Exactly the same thing we need to do. Okay, one final thought. You can do this. Should have crossed that out. We can do this. We can become a community shared value. You are most likely already doing some of the things you need to do already. You just need to build on that and develop a community resident focus. For the rest, well, we're your trade association, and we're your foundation, and we're here to help you. It's what a trade association is supposed to do, and we will do it. Thank you for your attention.